Here.
Councilmember Traver.
Here.
Councilmember Underhill.
Here.
Councilmember Wolfersberger.
Here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. We will start with the invocation by Brandon Crawford of Grace Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's pray. Our Lord, this evening we give you our thanks. We thank you for this remarkable city, for the remarkable people that live here. Lord, I thank you for each one of the leaders that represent our city, Lord, and I pray your very best for each of them. Lord, on this most holy of weeks, I also give you thanks for the gift of your Son. Lord, thank you for his life, death, and resurrection. Lord, I pray that many would come to know the life that he gives. And Lord, as we consider the items on the agenda this evening, the decisions that need to be made, and the conversations that need to take place, Lord, I pray that you would help us all to act with character and conviction. That you would help us to listen to one another with understanding and goodwill. That you would help us to speak with one another with charity and restraint. Lord, give us all a spirit of service. Remind us that we are but stewards under your authority. Guide us to be the leaders that your people need. Lord, help us to see the humanity and the dignity of those who disagree with us. Help us to treat all persons, no matter who they are, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence that your creation deserves. Lord, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. And these things we ask in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first we will have the approval of agenda. We will start with public comment on agenda items, and at the same time I'd like to amend that to be non-agenda items as well, so we'll continue with both of those, followed by the consent agenda. Items 10A are amendments to Chapter 51, Water of the City of Marshall Code of Ordinance. This will be a public hearing. We also have a public hearing on the Northeast Neighborhood Improvement Authority's Development Plan and Tax Incremental Financing Plan. Item 12A, we have a special land use for application SLU 19.01 for Domino's Pizza. 12B is fiber to the premise service rates revision. Item 12C is purchase of overhead conductor and transformers for Michigan Pure Med facility. Followed by public comment again on non-agenda items, council and manager communications. I'll seek a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I would make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Also with the additions of the MSPCA bill along with the sidewalk use license for Broadway Grill.
Yes.
Thank you.
What you said.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll start with public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. Persons addressing the council are required to give their full name and address for the record. When called upon, members of the public shall be limited to speaking for a maximum of 5 minutes on any agenda item or non-agenda item. Anyone wish to speak? All right, hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item 7A is the MDOT Transportation Economic Development Fund. Item 7B is the sidewalk use licenses for Pastrami Joe, Schuler's Restaurant, Grand River Brewery, and Broadway Grill. Item 7C are the annual poppy sales by the American Legion. Item 7D are the city council minutes from the work session and regular session on Monday, March 18th, 2019. And item 7E are the city bills with the addition of the MSCPA bill of $628,115.60 for a total of $863,768.24. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
And that was with the addition of
With-
the MDOT Sidewalk Cafe license.
Correct. And we'll do a roll call on that, please.
Member Gates?
Yes.
Member McNeil?
Yes.
Member Metzger?
Yes.
Member Traver?
Yes.
Member Underhill?
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger?
Yes.
Mayor Karen.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That moves us to item 10A, which is a public hearing for the amendments to Chapter 51 Water of the City of Marshall Code of Ordinances. Kristen, if you'll come up and speak to us about this, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. We work with a company called HydroCorp that does a lot of our cross connections, which are water that may not be connected properly inside of buildings and backflow preventer testing. In having them analyze our rules, we determined that our rules were a little out of date. Some of the regulatory agencies were under different names, and there were some rules that needed to change as things at the state level have changed. So we're just correcting our ordinance to come in line with what the DEQ, actually to change the name back to the Department of Environmental Quality and to come up to the rules of current day. So that's all we're asking, is to amend that ordinance to come in alignment with that.
Okay. Any questions?
Just for those of us that aren't plumbers, what is a cross connect?
You know, I didn't. Do you know the definition of a cross connection, Tom?
A cross connection is any type of possibility where you might have a vacuum on the system. Let's say you had a sink downstairs, or and you had a hose down the bottom that you had soapy water in, and if all of a sudden there was a vacuum on our water system that would
Pull it back into
pull
the
it back
system.
into our system. So there's a lot of, be it car washes or businesses that have special devices, backflow preventers on them, so they cannot pull back into the system and contaminate our system. And there's an inspection that is required by a certified plumber to make sure that any device is, so there is no chance of cross connections.
And then we also, HydroCorp goes into all the commercial businesses and checks all the backflow preventers, which again is a stopgap so that we don't suck any of that stuff back into our water system as well. Almost all commercial businesses have them.
Indoor drinking water.
Yes, into our drinking water system, correct. I apologize for not knowing that.
I had a question, just a point of clarification about, it says connection to city water supply system required if somebody, as I read it, it says when any repair, improvement, or replacement which would require a permit from the county's health department is required to be made to an existing well, then it looks to me like connection to city water would be required.
If you're within 300 feet of the water system, and you're currently not on our water system, if you have any upgrade, need any other changes, you have to comply and become part of the city water system. As the system was built, there were houses that were on wells, and we've allowed them to stay on wells until such time either the wells go bad or there's other issues, and then they have to connect to the city system.
Okay, just wondering what kind of costs people might incur for that, and just what the logic is, what the reasoning is behind that.
Well, we don't want people to have wells in the city because that can draw from the aquifer that the city has, in addition to other contaminants that can happen from well systems like that. Cost, it's hard for me to really say. When you build a house, you always incur the cost, the homeowner does. It's not a city cost. We provide the system from the main to the curb stop, which is where we can shut off the water, and there to the house belongs to the homeowner, albeit the homeowner does pay for our work to do that. I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head how much that would be. Depends on the length, depends on the material, depends on the situation.
Do we know how many residents in Marshall have wells to date?
Not many. I think around the fairgrounds area is probably one of the predominant areas that we have. Tom might have more input on that as well.
Yeah, there's some intermittent couple homes in a neighborhood. I don't want to go into specifics that I know about, but these are homes that have been there for 50, 60 years. Why they didn't connect, I don't know. So it's when those systems fail, then they do connect. I mean, it's surprising. They're very scattered. They're not all in one, next door to each other. There'll be one on the northeast and a couple. I mean, there's probably that are available to connect, maybe a dozen.
Yeah, there's not a lot. Like the fairgrounds area has some infrastructure built, but not all of it. So there's a lot of houses there that are on wells. But there's houses on closer to Marshall Avenue that are next to infrastructure, so that when they sell, they have to connect and things like that. So
I was going to say, if a well failed in the city, how would we know that?
because they would have to get permitted to either get a new well drilled, and that goes through the public health department, who then notifies us that a new well is being drilled within the city.
Lots of times, we would construct a water main to a facility and go past homes that weren't served for that, say, that industry or business. Good example is we ran a water main out to Love's, and we went down East Michigan Avenue, went by many homes. Instead of forcing them to do it, they didn't have to do it, and then if their system ever failed, the city water would be available for them.
It's a similar situation with our sanitary sewer system as well. There's several houses in the city that are on septic that, as they transition off of septic, they come onto the city's sanitary system.
I'd rather have city.
All right, thank you, Kristen. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak may come up and do so. I have 5 minutes to speak. All right, hearing no comments, I will close the public hearing and seek a motion to adopt the proposed amendment to Chapter 51 of the Marshall City Code.
So moved. Second.
Any further comments or questions? All right, please do a roll call vote.
Member Metzger?
Yes.
Member Traver?
Yes.
Member Underhill?
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger?
Yes.
Mayor Karen?
Yes.
Member Gates?
Yes.
Member McNeil?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to the public hearing for the Northeast Neighborhood Improvement Authority Development Plan and Tax Incremental Financing Plan. John, will you please get us up to date on this one?
Good evening, Council, Honorable Mayor. It was about the end of August of last year that we began thinking about this, and we had Council set a public hearing for October 1st. And at that time, Council adopted the boundaries of the Northeast Neighborhood Improvement Authority. After that public hearing, we had a 60-day wait period before we could take any action. So on December 17th, Council adopted an ordinance creating the boundaries of the Northeast Neighborhood Improvement Authority. At that meeting, he also set the NIA board members, as which we had on January 15th, our first meeting. And on February 19th of 2019, we adopted this development plan and TIFA plan that you have in front of you. Once you adopt this plan, the development and TIFA plan, KCC and Calhoun County have 60 days in which to opt out of their tax capture. As of today, or last week, I'm confident that they're both supporting the NIA and that we will capture their taxes at 65% with a 35% pass-through back to them. Creating this ordinance, creating this development plan, this TIFA plan, will not increase anyone's taxes whatsoever. I can promise that. Your taxes will go up based on the rate of inflation, but by adopting this plan, this will not create anybody's taxes to change in any way. So, if there's any questions you have from me before?
If I could, Jim. One of the things is this is a tool for residential development. It's about the only tool that the state of Michigan gives us. If a developer comes in, wants to develop a parcel, any public infrastructure, sidewalks, streets, water mains, sanitary sewers that would be public, we can fund those but pay back the bond or the debt on them through the tax capture over a period of time. So if a developer uses our money to do the infrastructure but develops nothing, then the developer is going to be paying for the bond payment that year because there would be no tax capture. So it really is an incentive for a developer to develop quicker, to get as much tax base into the neighborhood as possible. We do have one, within the plan, we'd like to delete one sentence. It's page 40 of your council packet. Let people get there. In there, top of the page starts legal description. You're on the right page. But if you go down to description of existing improvements, number 1 is Oaklawn Hospital property. Your third sentence, which reads, Oaklawn Hospital has indicated that it is willing to sell or give away a portion of the property that they do not use for a residential development. We've been asked to withdraw that sentence. It doesn't change the plan really at all. It's just a sentence that Oaklawn would prefer not to be memorialized in a document. So if you plan to adopt this tonight, if you could have that in your motion, that sentence be removed.
I would like to add one other thing that was important, brought up many times in our NIA board meeting, is that the two development plans that are depicted in basically the exhibits, those are examples only, strictly examples, what ifs. The final development may not look anything like that. It was just a way to put numbers together for the TIF plan. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
John, in the past at council sessions, you've done a really nice job of sort of quickly explaining your earlier comment about the fact that this is not an incremental tax. It is really a capture of the natural change of the taxable value. Can you just give a quick recap of that?
Yes, what's going to happen on the TIF plan portion is the properties within the boundaries will have a base value, whatever that value is. Let's just say $20,000 taxable value. 2019 taxable value for the area is $30,000. We would capture the millage rates of the city, KCC, and Calhoun County based on that difference, that new amount. That's all we're going to capture. We're not going to capture. The entities will receive exactly what they received this year. That'll be 100%. Anything more, we will capture for the NIA.
Thanks.
Any further questions? All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for the Neighborhood Improvement Authority's Development Plan and Tax Incremental Financing Plan. Anyone wishing to speak? You will have 5 minutes to do so, and please state your name and address.
Richard Lindsay, Executive Director of Legal and Community Affairs at Oaklawn. I'm also the Chair of the Neighborhood Improvement Authority. I just wanted to, again, request that you make the change that City Manager Turkowitz had referenced. And again, I've stated in the meetings as well that as Mr. Bartlett stated that, again, we've not had any final decision by the board relative to plans, so anything that Oaklawn does would have to go through its board of directors. But we are very excited about this moving forward. The number of times I've driven my kids by this property is probably not as many as you have, Scott, probably, but in the many, many times. So we've got a beautiful piece of property. There's going to be some redevelopment there, so we're looking forward to that happening this year or next year, but shortly. So thank you.
Got some copies for everybody. Dennis Chimner is my name. I own property on O'Keefe. It's 3.3 acre parcel, and and I fall within the improvement plan zone. I've owned the property for almost 15 years. It's 3.3 acres. I was told about 12 years ago that there would be an easement available for me. I haven't pursued anything, haven't done anything with it. I live in Springfield, Michigan. And driving by it the last year or two, I've seen there's been some dumping on the property. There's piles of carpet from the condominiums or whatever, townhouses on one side. And there's a couple of outbuildings, and I want to have the property resurveyed and then checked. But the biggest things I want to do is make an improvement to the property as far as cleaning up all the shrubs and the dead trees, but I would need access to do that. And my ultimate goal was to have a sign on 94, because there's a big part of 94 in the front of that property, and it borders all the pine trees in the front. So I'm looking to try to get a access road to that with electricity. So two things. So if I had a sign company that could advertise local advertising first, that would be great. Second of all, as far as the neighborhood and the neighbors, I'd like to go in there and have that same access point to go in and clean and revive that property. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I didn't know how that tied into the zone when I got the letter in the mail, but that's why I thought I should come and state my interest. That's it. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How do you have access to your property now?
Well, they told me when I bought the property that it was landlocked. That was years ago. Then they said it wasn't landlocked, that I could have an easement through there. I never pursued it, and that was years ago. So I mean, I didn't pursue it. I've owned it for all these years and haven't done anything to it. But then driving by, I just thought of a couple ideas that I could do to clean it up and make the property worth more money and some value to myself also.
My suggestion, Mayor, on this is that we could have city staff look at it, and we've got your name and number
Yes.
here.
Yep.
And get back, because I'm familiar with that parcel back there, but
Great.
I thought it was connected with the lot that's vacant, but it sounds like it's not.
Okay.
So let's do,
We'll
help.
take a look into that.
Okay, I
Thank you,
appreciate that.
Dennis.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good evening. Eric Murray, 617 Hill Road here in Marshall. I'll ask your indulgence because I don't really have a lot of familiarity with what the plan is. From my perspective, there has not been a tremendous amount of information made available, and from your perspective, there may have been. But a couple questions come to mind for me. I know that TIFAs have worked very well in a lot of communities, a lot of success with them, but there's also a lot of questions, and there have been instances which are easily found where the TIFA has been problematic. And I know that this council doesn't necessarily answer questions of folks at this podium, but I'd like to suggest a couple lines of thought for you. One, I'd be curious as to whether you've identified the term of the TIFA. TIFAs that are open-ended are problematic for a bunch of reasons. The way the TIFA is administered is pretty important. Many TIFAs have boards. Many TIFAs have very specific rules and guidelines, and I would ask you as to whether in this instance that will be the case, and if so, what percentage of the money captured by the TIFA will go to the administration of the TIFA, because that matters. Sometimes these boards and these functions become small little industries among themselves, and so it would be important for the community to know that. It would also be important for the community, in my opinion, to know what happens over the long term, because, and I mean this with all respect, when we talk about capturing funds that are already being identified, what we're sort of ignoring is that means that there are other uses that are being ignored. Because if we have 100% pot and we capture X percent of that, that money previously was going somewhere else. Typically, in municipalities, and really in all of life, if I take money from Peter to pay Paul, I've got to go find money somewhere else. And what the community would be really poorly served by would be if in 2 years you had to come to the community and say, we're going to need extra money here, or it may not be, it may not be a Marshall problem, it could be a KCC problem or one of these other organizations that funds are being captured from. Because if they lose their base funding, they don't just smile and acquiesce. They're going to be looking for a way to refill that funding source. So I would hope that the city is looking at the sort of ancillary fallout from what this TIFA will do. I think most people in the community, and I certainly live in the area, would like to see something constructive there. I'd certainly like to know more about what the plan is for what's going to be there. But I'm very concerned because we do have examples not very far away from us of TIFAs that have gotten sort of out of control. And it's real important in a community of this size because we kind of all know one another and we all kind of run into each other every day on the street. That level of accountability tends to make for a healthy government in Marshall because you do run into all of us on the street. And we want to be careful when we're talking about long-term commitments of funding to something that the next generation of council people and the next generation of residents in Marshall wonder what they've gotten themselves into. So again, I would love to see more information out there on this project, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Fahrenbrook, and I live at 401 Julius Place, Marshall. I did read through most of this the other day, and I'm looking at some of the, the presentation tonight, but the presentation for the people sitting out here who have not read it, do not know what it is about. That's why they came here tonight, and that has not been explained to the people. But you people had the idea, the ability to understand it better because you know what it is. There's also a work scope in here that is talking about improvement of the roads in the area, milling and re-blacktopping, and these other type of things that are going in there. Because up to this point, what was presented was really not a whole lot for the neighborhood to be interested in. But our roads are in bad shape, and that was one of the things that people are interested in. But I would think is that you'd want to make a presentation to the people here so that they can understand what we're talking about, so that we can ask questions, they can ask questions what's concerning them about it. And I just appreciate it if you would maybe call John back in and explain what's in here so that the people can understand in the group here. Then let's go from there. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak this evening on the Neighborhood Improvement Authority? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. John, do you have any recommendations?
Sure, and we can have John come back up here to, I know last time we had the public hearing, we had PowerPoint presentation, but I guess to answer some of Eric's questions, there is a board. It's currently a 5-member board that's been appointed by the council. It can be up to 9 members, but we're starting small. It's a recommendation from the city manager to the council who goes on the board. And so we're leaving spots open for future developers who might be purchasing some of the vacant land in our neighborhood. And most of you know I live in the neighborhood, so when I say our neighborhood. So there was a question about administration fee. In the next year's proposed budget, there's a $500 administrative fee to be collected. All our funds, we collect an administrative fee, and it varies. This one here is about 10% roughly of the collected revenue. Right now, the plan is set up to be a 20-year plan. So, and basically, I think that answers your questions there. And maybe, John, if you want to just maybe, if the council desires to step back a little bit and let John maybe talk a little more about, again, the concept, what we did are just concept plans until a developer is actually buys the land, comes to the planning commission for a plan unit development. There has been a couple meetings with the neighbors within 300 feet of the State Farm or Golden Rule property. There'll be another one coming up here, I believe, in May, because right now it's very conceptual. The county land bank owns the Golden Rule property, and they are looking for developers in the future. So right now, this is just an idea, it's a concept. What happens, we don't know until a developer comes in with a plan. So, John, why don't you sort of fill in some of those blanks for the audience?
So basically, the law says we can have 20 years. We're originally having 20 years, but we're looking at only capturing taxes for 15. We think that's all we need. Again, it depends on the land bank, the main Golden Rule property, the main campus. The land bank owns it, and they can capture taxes for 5 years. So we would get nothing from that. We'd get half of that money that we would normally get. So that's, if they take their 50%, we're going to probably end up going 20 years. If they give that up, we'll probably only go 15 years. On January 1st of this year, the entire TIFA law was rewritten. We must have on our website the minutes of every TIFA board, any development plans, our budget, our audits, all have to be out there. So if anybody's concerned with anything not being transparent with our TIFA districts, just go out on our website. I mean, it's all going to be out there. Probably in the next month or two, we'll get the NIA set up. What the major development plan is, fix the roads, and put in infrastructure to make a project happen. If Golden Rule and the Oakland property never get developed, we're going to capture about $9,000 a year. So it's not much to do. It's not much to fix the roads. But in this plan, and I'll make sure it gets out on the website, it's got the list of the roads that are going to get remilled and fixed. Kind of a illustrative, maybe what can happen for the main campus of Golden Rule. And if there's anybody in here know where Golden Rule property is, this is State Farm property. Okay? That's the main campus.
Former State Farm.
Former State Farm. I'm so sorry. So we put in this plan, TIFA plan, if the main campus gets developed, it could generate a taxable value of $2.7 million or something. We're basing our revenues based on this project. Same thing with the State Farm or the Oakland property. I can't remember what we had on that, $700,000 to $800,000 increase in taxable value. Now we're starting to get some revenue into the Neighborhood Improvement Authority, which will allow us to do something. Again, if these projects don't happen, we don't have any revenue, nothing left.
If I may, can you just explain to them, I don't think we've addressed fully the question, and I could explain it, but you're the expert, so I'd rather you do it. But, well, no, I'm certainly not. So if you could just explain to them why we don't have to be worried about the robbing Peter to pay Paul question. Why is this not going to ruin the city budget as it exists?
Number one, we're going to gain something that we don't have today. I mean, something tomorrow is better than nothing today. I mean, that's the whole concept, being able to do that. We have met 2 or 3 times with KCC and the county. KCC looks at more students. If we bring in X number of families, they're going to get some students out of that. And at the end of the 15 or 20 years, they're going to get all of that revenue. They're going to get all of that taxable value. The NIA basically goes away. I mean, it just ends. It can't be year after year renewed. It ends.
John, are residents welcome at the meetings? the NIA
Absolutely,
meetings.
it's an open meeting.
So
Absolutely.
if you want to keep up to date, you are welcome to attend those.
Yeah, our next NIA board meeting is actually tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock downstairs in the training room. Very simple budget. It's just approving next year's budget. They'll be very busy. The board will be very busy once we have a developer to look at a development agreement of what they're planning, how they're going to be back, will the tax capture collect enough to pay for the debt that would be incurred there. So those are the things. I'm going to use Mr. Clifton. It's okay if I use your project as an example. Mr. Clifton has an area there at the end of Forest, which is 12 lots left that have not been developed. If Mr. Clifton decided to continue the street through over to O'Keefe, the city electric is in, the water main is in. He would need to do other public improvements, which would include street, curb and gutter, sanitary sewer, probably a little storm sewer. Those are public improvements. The tax capture can pay for those public improvements so that Mr. Clifton can be able to sell those lots at a lower price. They get developed. We get additional electric, water, sewer customers. And then at the end, when the public improvement debt is paid off, then the city will get to capture the taxes. So it's an incentive to a developer to, it's like I said earlier, it's the only tool we have to assist with the residential development. I think probably in the last 10 years, it's maybe been 3 or 4 homes built in the city. And whatever incentive we can get to have better tax base, home base, homes sell very quickly if you talk to any realtor. And so this is the incentive, the tool that we have available to us.
Any other comments? Now that those questions were answered, I might have closed the public hearing a little too soon. Would anyone else like to speak?
We apologize for the sun. No, I don't apologize for it.
We don't see this very often, yeah.
Vince Trudell. I live on 1212 Comstock Drive. So this is encouraging that we're talking about growth for the city and developing, but I didn't hear much talk about Pratt Park and all of that situation that happened 9 years ago or so. So that's not a success story. So we heard a lot of promises made, things were going to happen. I think concessions were made by the city, and it's kind of a defunct project. It's not completed yet. So, in fact, I think it's in foreclosure, those properties there. So I think it's maybe a safer approach this way, because as you said, if the funds aren't there, the development doesn't happen. But I would encourage you guys, there should be more assurances maybe put in with the contractors or the developers themselves that they have to finish things, and there's got to be something on their side, whether it was escrow or something, so those improvements that are made, they're not made and then they're just left for the city to have to end up paying for or end up financing and that sort of thing. So that is a concern of mine. And then I guess the other thing too is there's a lot of streets and improvements listed, and I agree that a lot of those areas need improvement. So is there a backup plan? Because if we wait 10 years to improve those streets, they're going to be really in bad shape. So just...
Sure, I can answer that. Probably, where's Kristen? Wooded Lane, Hill Road Court, Hill Road, paving will start on those projects next week. And that is not, funds are not coming from this authority. Those are our streets money. So this is just an additional source that can be used. We rate streets, and then we choose those that, and some of you I know live over there, and so streets are still going to be taken care of. It just gives another funding source in the future to when the time is right. If the funds are not in the NIA, they'll be coming from our major and local streets funds. So you're not going to get ignored just because no development occurs. And also on Pratt Park, we hope this is an incentive for a developer to start up that project again, whatever happens through the tax system, court system. And, you know, I mentioned Mr. Clifton's, and we have the Golden Rule potential of the Oak Lawn parking area and the Pratt Park area. I did have somebody contact me about going a little bit further to the west. There's a parcel of land, but again, they're thinking of just buying into that land. And so it's, you know, if we can have incentive to have more residential, but I know I spent many times in your backyard looking out your back property at what happened behind you there. And again, the project just sits there now.
Again, I apologize if I'm asking something that you've already addressed. Will the Tifa have authority over the zoning of this area, or will that still be done through the city's zoning authority?
They have no authority on the planning commission.
Okay, so usage will be determined by this council through the zoning authority?
Through the zoning, yeah, through the planning commission and zoning board of appeals and the council, yes.
I'm sorry.
The Tifa board is just financing.
At this point, has the zoning authority made or offered any clarity for the zoning of this, the entire authority, not just the...
Eric, do you want to...
Are you changing what you're going to allow to be built there?
Oh, right now it's zoned office service, so the zone is definitely going to have to change. Probably talking with the land bank, well, not probably talking with the land bank is thinking of this would be what's called a planned unit development or planned unit residential development. So that a developer will come in with a plan to present. It won't be R2 or R3 like our homes are zoned. It'll probably be similar to, and we keep talking with the neighborhood, that would be similar to what the Brewer complex, the Brewer Woods, Brewer Farms. But again, until a developer truly buys the land and presents something, we won't know. But again, the planning commission will be making those final determinations on the zoning.
Okay, and those, okay, that clarified what I wanted.
And then also just when there's a rezoning, of course, it's a public meeting. The properties within 300 feet are notified, so it won't catch all of your neighborhood, but it'll, again, it's very public out there, so it's published. But
Does the council at this point have any idea when the actual rezoning stage, because as you said, first thing you have to do is get it away from having to be a business? And
well, tomorrow afternoon, the land bank is, she's trying to get it together. Krista from the land bank, who sits on the NIA board, may have a timeline for us of how they will be seeking requests for proposals of developers. And then once a developer and, you know, all the sales completed, then I think that developer would be showing up at planning commission. So I'm not sure how far out.
many years ago, but still respectfully within your purview of things, there was a very contentious period of time, and the city was very gracious and had a number of public forums that were made available for the community to fully understand the scope of a project. And for the people that live in this district, the usage could have a dramatic impact on their property value, could have a dramatic impact, on their frankly, their quality of life. So I'm hopeful that the City Council, at this moment, will consider that there might be real value in holding an extra effort to make sure the community is well informed. And I just hope you'll consider that.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Thanks, sir.
All right, any other comments? All right, I will close the public hearing again. Any other comments or questions from the council?
I don't believe so.
All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll seek a motion to adopt the proposed, to adopt the Northeast Neighborhood Improvement Authority's Development Plan and Tax Incremental Financing Plan.
So moved.
Do we need it amended with that language?
Oh, less the sentence.
As amended, under the Oaklawn Hospital property section,
Sentence, yes.
sentence.
So moved.
Supported. All right, and we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Traver?
Yes.
Member Underhill?
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger?
Yes.
Mayor Karen?
Yes.
Member Gates?
Yes.
Member McNeil?
Yes.
Member Metzger?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That moves us to item 12A on the agenda, special land use application number SLU 1901 for Domino's Pizza. Tricia, can you bring us up to date on this, please?
Last week, Planning Commission held a public hearing for a special land use application for Domino's Pizza. The property is at 912 West Michigan Avenue. The property is zoned correctly. It's in the B4 district for a restaurant, and in that zoning district with an accessory drive-through requires a special land use permit. Planning Commission went through the site plan. We looked at parking, we looked at, the stacking for the drive-through. It meets all the requirements. Actually, the drive-through window is basically going to be a pickup window, so there won't be a lot of stacking because there won't be any money exchanging hands at the window. There won't be any outdoor speakers or anything to affect the surrounding neighborhood. Nobody was in attendance. There wasn't any comments from the commissioners, and it was passed unanimously. And they recommend tonight for your approval.
Thank you. Any further questions on this item? All right, so I will seek a motion to approve the special land use application SLU 1901 for Domino's Pizza at 912 West Michigan Avenue for an accessory drive-through window.
So moved?
Support?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That takes us to item 12B, fiber to the premise service rates revision. And Ed is here to update us on this.
Jessica, our customer service and marketing manager, is also going to assist in this because she'll have the direct, she's had a direct request for these rate changes. The only thing I would introduce that Ed is back on, back on August 17th of 2017, the council approved a set of rates for the FiberNet project. Let me get this date right. August 8th of 2017, the council approved an initial rate, and that was our best guess at that opportunity of what rates would be applied to people applying for FiberNet service. But since then, there's been requests for different rates, and we would like to accommodate those customers, and particularly geared towards the commercial, but for a small business commercial, for a lower rate for them, and also for the large, on the other end of the spectrum, for the large commercial customers. So, Jessica? Did I cover you on that much?
Did you?
All right. Currently, our commercial prices are geared a little bit more towards industrial companies, making it difficult for small businesses to find the justification to make the switch to Marshall FiberNet. We would like to introduce plans specifically for the businesses who do not need great amounts of bandwidth but still need internet to run credit card machines, phone lines, social media, and email. In line with the current business pricing and comparable to competition, this plan would be 60 megabits by 60 for $60. And in contrast, a 10 megabit per second plan, 10 megabit per second plan for $10,000 a month is proposed for large-scale industrial operations.
That's 10 gigabit, correct?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's it.
All right, any questions for Jessica on the pricing structure?
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of small businesses in town that don't need the rate and the speed that we were offering, and they're just small mom and pop shops, I guess.
Or the static IPs.
So, yeah,
Yeah, this will just make it a lot easier for them, or a lot more reasonable for them to
buy.
connect to our service, which is, of course, what we want to do as well, so.
Yeah, recommend the adjustments. Yep.
All right, thank you very much. So I will look for a motion to adopt the resolution which implements the revised service level rates for the FiberNet project.
So move.
Supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That moves us on to item 12C, purchase of overhead conductor and transformers for Michigan Pure Medical Facility. Ed, if you would give us some information on this one, please.
I just want you all to know that this guy, when he gets up to the podium, it's going to cost us money. We asked him the last two times not to show up and look.
But with a little investment, you can make a lot. And that's what this is. There's a large facility that's being developed south of town on US 227. And it's, I see, it's going to require about 10 megawatts of electricity, 10,000 kilowatts of electricity. And they want this, they really would like to have it by July, the middle of July, because then they can start some sampling production so the state can come in and approve their license.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Ed. Can you tell us the 10 megawatts compared to what the city uses on a normal basis, how that compares?
Certainly, on a normal basis, the cities during a peak period, and this is just a few heating day or cooling days in the summer, gets up to about 23 megawatts. This 10 megawatts is going to be throughout the year. So it's a constant, pretty constant load. The facility will be cooling in the summer and lighting and heating in the winter to produce their product.
Thank you.
So, okay. So it's we're trying to meet the requirement of the customer. It's serious. It's about I call it a net revenue, and a net revenue with these type of customers are what we're going to buy the electricity for versus what we're going to sell them, versus what we sell it for, and that's going to be about $91,000 a month for net revenue that will be come into the really the electric fund and used for maybe other projects, or eventually I would think it would be used for when this project fully develops for other projects within the city. So we got the crews right now. We have some poles that we're using out of stock. They're setting poles currently, but what we don't have is this large conductor to be able to handle this 10 or 12 megawatts. It's going to come online here real quick. So we went back and looked. We just recently purchased the same conductor for the Monroe Street Bridge at $1.70 a foot. That supplier was contacted, and they said they'd be willing to also hold $1.70 a foot. And as they typically do, say if you order it today. And we did that. It was still the lowest bid for the Monroe Street Bridge, so I think it would have been the lowest bid for this. You never know absolutely because we didn't go out for bids on this, but the price is reasonable at $1.70 a foot for 30,000 feet of conductor, and that's a full three-phase line down there, capable of the 12 megawatts really of load that's going to be down there. So that's been ordered. Won't be here till probably early July, so it's going to be nip and tuck, because I know that the developer down there is going to want the service, and we're trying to do everything we can to, because of the revenue gain, to accommodate him. And coincidentally with that, and I have been talking with an electrical engineer for the development down there, and indicating to them that we need their requirements for. They did say the 12 megawatts, but what's the building going to need, and how's it going to be served, and what kind of transformers do you expect? And finally, even a week or so ago, they indicated they're going to need two large transformers, and I put them in at the 3,750 kVA, that's kilovolt amperes. And they want two of those for this first phase, and there will be a total of 6 phases. So ultimately, there will be 6 or 12 of these type transformers will be purchased, but we only need 2 right now. I would think in the future, because there's these, once they get their first phase up, the rest of the phases are going to be identical. That they would give us, we'll have enough lead time then about for competitive bids on those, so. But for this particular thing, we need to, again, get these transformers in, get them in service, get them hooked up, so that they can be provided service. And those, we indicated earlier that those were going to be about $60,000 each. We just got a firm quote today at around $53,000, so it's a little bit less than this $60,000.
And you've worked with the Solomon Corporation before for previous
Yes, on
transformers?
transformers and other products that they offer.
Okay.
Yes, they're out of Kansas.
Ed, that 30,000 feet of that overhead, what is it, ACR?
ACSR, yes.
ACSR. You won't have to get more of that to accommodate the 4 remaining generators.
No, but.
Ed.
But.
I'm telling you, folks.
But it will, when this load comes on, it will take a new substation down in that area when the additional load comes on. We can't serve any, the 12 megawatt maximum our system will be able to take to get down that far. When they're, ultimately, they indicate they'll roll out, it'll be about 40 megawatts. It's going to create another substation down in that area, but it's millions of dollars of revenue for the city.
Once all this equipment and pieces come in, how long will it take after it's on site to have it all working?
Well, we expect to have it working by the middle of July, middle to late July.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the whole project?
No.
Just this?
Just
Yes.
this.
And Tom has more knowledge about the licensing process on that, but I know the state's got to come in, from my understanding, and do an inspection and see how they're going to process before they'll give the final approval.
Any other questions for Ed on this? All right, so thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
We would seek a motion to approve the purchase of 30,000 feet of overhead 795 ACSR conductor from Wesco at $1.70 a foot for a total amount of $51,000 with a 10% contingency, and approve the purchase of 2 transformers from Solomon Corporation at a cost of $120,000.
So moved.
Support.
Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Underhill?
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger?
Yes.
Mayor Karen?
Yes.
Member Gates?
Yes.
Member McNeil?
Yes.
Member Metzger?
Yes.
Member Traver?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That moves us to item 14, which is public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak has 5 minutes to do so. If they share their name and address for the record.
Good evening. For those of you I've not personally met, my name is Matt Parks. I am the president of Marshall Firefighter Local 1929. We come to you this evening celebrating this exciting news about the direction the city is heading. We keep hearing positive industry and business opportunities within the city that is in front of you. Positive direction with many possibilities. The union looks forward to this growth within the city and the opportunities ahead as we continue to provide an excellent fire service and fire protection to our community. With such growth coming to the city, I know that countless hours in planning along with visioning and taking place and will continue to take place to help meet the needs of these current opportunities. We will also see an increase, as we know, in population and residential properties within the city. Likewise, the fire department continues to plan and prepare to meet those needs, to grow with the city, and to expand our staff and services with those needs that are coming. We have, as many of you know, we have begun the process of our negotiations with the city and look forward to working closely with all involved parties to come to a signed contract. As the city continues to move forward in a positive direction, we as a department are ready to move forward in the same positive direction. I just want to thank all of you in City Council and the Honorable Mayor, the City Manager, the directors, and for all the hard work and hours of discussion that are spent on doing a budget and getting this budget accepted into the city. I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. All right, we will move to council and manager communications. Member Traver?
Nothing.
Underhill?
I have one thing.
Okay.
Many of you don't know probably, I sit on the ambulance board as well. And they produce a report on all of their calls by month and then a year-to-date and a comparison. So I thought I might share this time with you. If you like it, I'll keep bringing it back, but they're very busy and they do a great, great job serving all our residents and townships. So next time you see one of those gentlemen, please say thank you.
Staff? Member Wolfersberger?
I have nothing.
Okay. Gates?
Nothing today.
Member McNeil? Nope. Just have a couple quick things. As you've probably seen on North Kalamazoo, we've got some orange barrels of opportunity out along the side of the road. The tentative plan right now is for milling and paving to start May 3rd and 4th. Of course, that can, we're hoping that's when that's going to happen, but that's why the barrels were out. They got them out a little early in case the asphalt plants opened up and we're able to start work earlier, but that's the tentative date. We're also making a lot of progress with our downtown project. Consumers has made it, they're working on the alleys now around Eagle Street and heading towards the fountain, so they're getting those mains replaced, and that's coming along quite nicely. It is a little disruptive, but like I said, it's progress, and we're going to have a really great downtown with a nice new paved road as soon as all of this is done. So with those comments, we will go into a closed session.
You need a motion?
So I need a motion to do that.
So moved.
Supported. All right.
Always a bridesmaid.
Thank
Member
you.
Wolfersberger?
Yes.
Mayor Karen?
Yes.
Member Gates?
Yes.
Member McNeil?
Yes.
Member Metzger?
Yes.
Member Traver?
Yes.
Member Underhill?
Yes.
Do you want to move across the hall, or do you want us to work from here? Or
In here.
What's your preference?
This is fine.
Stay here?